Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Tuesday Live podcast with Jenn and Joe. And today we are so lucky to have two rock stars who have turned from rookie to rock star right in front of us over the last few months. The dynamic duo, the mom-daughter duo, who are just completely crushing it. We got Natalie and Kerri in the house today.
Yay,
so thank you guys so much for coming in.
Hi.
And today it's going to be super fun. Really casual. We're just gonna be chatting like friends, talking about some real estate stuff. So if you're tuning in, y'all are in for a treat.
And as always, we're going live. So if you are with us, you can drop comments below. We'll get to them as we go. And if you are watching this recorded, give us a subscribe or like, or give us a little bit of a review. We'd love to hear that you love this content that we're bringing you each and every week.
Yeah. So, didn't you just say with the our Apple one, we gotta get some reviews?
Yeah, Apple podcast review. That'd be awesome. If you guys like what you hear, give us a little 5-star rating.
See? Well, so today we're going to talk about some real estate, right? So many of you obviously know Jenn and I have been real estate investors for quite a while now.
A couple years.
And not only have we been doing, but we've been working with folks for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And I got to say, out of so many people we work with, there's such a cool story here. So I think first, did I meet you, Kerri, first?
Yes. Yeah, I joined the small group coaching group first. Yeah.
So where did you find Joe and Jenn? I have to ask because I don't remember.
I was trying to remember that. I was all over social media looking at everything real estate investing. So it's hard to say because you guys are everywhere. So I think it may have been just an Instagram post. It may have been somebody that posted something from you guys that I followed up on. So I can't really remember exactly where I found you.
Yeah, I know when we chatted way back when, you were like, hey, I want to get into real estate, and I have this daughter, and we're a family. We've been thinking about doing this, but that was the one thing. Sometimes people say they found usually Jenn on like Instagram posting some cool stuff, or we get tagged in something.
The power of social media. We always talk about it.
Yay.
Yeah. I think that's it for sure.
So what was life like before Joe and Jenn for you guys?
I can go first. For me, I'm a licensed physical therapist assistant. So I've been in healthcare for 12 years. So I was busy running around, driving 100 miles a day, visiting patients, and then getting in my mindset of what am I going to do when it's time to retire, or when should I retire, or am I ready to retire? And each day that went by, I kept thinking, yeah, I think I'm getting closer. So, and thinking about what to do after retirement, that's where I kind of thought about real estate investing. We had a little bit of a tax surprise a year and a half ago at tax time, where we got a capital gains tax surprise that our financial planner wasn't planning very well for, and we didn't know about. So at that point, I thought I need to find out more about our investments, our portfolio, our money, So then I just started buying every real estate investing book I could get my hands on. So I've gone from BRRRR method to MTR to all these different strategies to try to find my slot, And so I felt like MTR was a really good combination of hospitality and maybe design and investing. And so I thought that'd be great. So I brought in Natalie, asked her if she would help me with marketing. She's a marketing expert. She's also technology expert, which I am not great at. So she kind of, offered to help me, and one thing led to another. We went on a road trip to Arizona to look at properties, and she kind of got the bug. And then she started coming to the small group coaching, and then really got the bug. And that's how we ended up here. So this year so far, we've purchased 3 properties. All 3 we are hoping to employ the rent to own strategy. And we currently have potential tenant buyers going through screening right now for all 3 of them.
Oh,
that's so exciting. Yeah.
Well, and the thing I really got to say, and I just keep saying, like, you guys are the rock star of just taking action. Mm-hmm. And there's been many calls, many times I could either see it on your face or I could hear it on the phone. And you're like, oh boy, I'm getting into something new. And, whenever you're doing that, it gets to be always a little strange, a little different, sometimes uncomfortable. But I have to say, no matter what, you guys have always kept an A+ attitude. And whatever it was, you just did those next steps and you just kept going. And as you can see, Sway giving you some love.
Yeah.
You guys are amazing, which, yes, I agree with you, Sway, they are.
Well, I want to hear more about this Natalie bug. Yeah.
I was telling my mom earlier, we were kind of talking about like the process of getting into all of this, because it was quite a while ago that she first started thinking about real estate investing as a next step for her. I was consulting at the time. I come from a consumer packaged goods kind of corporate world, and I had left a pretty big company to get back into startup land. I love startup culture and building businesses, and I wanted to be closer to that and didn't really know what I wanted to do first. So spent a lot of time consulting, about 3 years consulting for other startup companies, and kind of looked at my mom's next endeavor as an opportunity for her to start her own startup. And then I just kind of fell in love with it. There's so many really awesome things about real estate that are like a startup. You're building your own business from the ground up. It's not just about the investing side of it. There are so many elements that are the same. You guys know this, and we watch this with you guys all the time. You're hiring employees and you're putting together systems and, operations and training and hiring, and I already said that one, but really building
that happens more
it
than
does
once.
happen a lot.
And again, the hiring and the training and the hiring. And that's the fun part of building. And then the other side of it is the product that you get to deal with on a daily basis is really cool in this industry, because it changes constantly. You're not selling the same thing. You're not buying the same thing. You're not dealing with the same people. It's so dynamic. And that's what became really interesting for me. I was telling my mom that I remember when I really started, like what I feel like was when I got the bug of like, okay, I'm going to do this and put 110% into it. I was getting a pedicure with my daughters, and I was listening to one daughter speaking in one ear and a Joe podcast in the other ear. And I don't even remember what podcast it was, but you had mentioned something about how so much of this business is about volume and just the number of people that you can touch and talk to. And at that point in time, I hadn't really started branching out and talking to people about buying, specifically creatively. Can I take over your mortgage? Can I buy your house on owner finance? I hadn't had a lot of those conversations with real sellers yet. And it was nerve-wracking. Like, when you guys talk about post the blue ads. Okay, well, when you post the blue ads, then what happens? I don't know how to talk to people about this. I've never done this before. And you said something about volume, where something clicked for me that I kind of just realized that it's not about saying the right thing to the next person. It's about saying something over and over and over and over and over again. And the only way that I'm going to do that is by getting out there and talking to as many people as possible. And in my head, I made it a game about volume. I'm not trying to do this right. I'm not trying to be correct. I'm not trying to sell anybody on anything. I'm just trying to have this conversation as many times as possible and see what happens. And that's what really kind of got the ball rolling for me.
I mean, you just hit it like episode over, right?
That was great. No, but it's so true, because to hear you say that, when you told me, like, I didn't really like talking on the phone, I almost didn't believe you.
No.
But you're absolutely right that it's a volume, and I love that. It's like, you don't have all of the answers, but like, can you just pick up the phone, ask the questions, and that's what you did.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you have to have that type of mentality, and that going in there, like 3 people said no, like, is it time to fold up your business and say this doesn't work, or is that being talked to the next one, right? And I think that's why also too, like, you've got some hidden talents. You're an exceptional golfer. Right? You don't get to be, believe me, I could attest this. You don't get to be an exceptional golfer by doing what I did, right? You probably had to get around other people doing really well, spend a lot of time practicing. Mm-hmm. How many swings did you swing that were terrible, right?
I've swung a golf club probably 1,000,000 times.
Right. But over time, you start to get better. And it's just like one of those things where if you stop, you tend to get a little rusty, you get back into it, and then eventually you pick back up. So, it's that mentality that you've really implemented in your lifestyle overall that gives you the success to be a golfer, to do this, or to do whatever it really is. And I think taking that right attitude, when we talk with anybody, it's about your first step is like mindset. And if you walk into it like, hey, like maybe I don't know this now, but I'm going to figure this out. And if you just tell me to do this, I'm going to do it. And I'll get what you tell me it's going to happen. Fine. Let me just go do that. And not just overthink it. Just take those action steps. And like you said, they're not always perfect, but it gets you there.
Yeah. And I really didn't like talking on the phone. I was definitely one of those, like, if I have to call somebody and have this conversation on the phone, I'm going to avoid it for a long time. But it was the volume thing is like, you can't get to the no as fast unless you're on the phone with people. And that changed really fast for me. It was like, if I want to talk to 100 people this week, it's not going to be over direct message or text messaging or through email. There's way too much wasted time that happens in that. And I want either 100 no's so that I can move on to the next ones, or, throw some yeses in there.
Rapid fire. So since you've done this, how much money have you guys spent on lead gen?
I actually just started spending a little bit of money on lead gen because I'm excited about different angles and different opportunities, different types of purchases and exit strategies that I'm learning a lot more about and turning this into a full-time business. But the 3 properties that we bought this year are all from Blue Ads. And we have 2 in the pipeline that are still from Blue Ads from 4 or 5 months ago, just ones that we continue to follow up with.
So up until then, not a dime.
No.
You're getting all those leads for free. So when you're talking to all these people per week in the beginning, and this is where we really dive into, like, don't spend money in the beginning.
Yeah.
Generate these leads for free. Learn how to do this.
Learn how to talk to people.
And then once you do and you're building and growing, well, then guess what? Now you could throw a little bit of gas on the fire and really ignite it. And it sounds like that's exactly what you guys are doing. So,
yeah, I think, I don't care which one you can pick, but let's do a deal breakdown, because I feel like people love a good deal breakdown. So do you have one of these 3 that you just want to talk about or can kind of share with everyone? Obviously, you got it from the Blue Ad, but the seller story, why were they selling? How did that go? And then obviously you're looking for a rent-to-own buyer, but I'd love to kind of break down one of those deals.
Man, all 3 of the ones we bought this year are really cool seller stories. We've gotten so lucky with our sellers, built like awesome rapport with our sellers, and have, continued communication, which is another thing about creative financing that has become evident is so important, is having, if your sellers, when you're taking over their mortgage, you need to have a good, open, trusting relationship with them, because there's little things that you have to follow up on. There's still little ins and outs. Can you send in this piece of paperwork? And because we've built great relationships with them, it's not been no big deal. I don't know which one you want to talk about, Mom. Tank House?
Okay. Yeah. That's been the most interesting, I think, because of the people that we dealt with, the sellers who are wonderful, and their story. And they started out in that house as an Airbnb. They had some difficulties with listings or rentals because they had a road closure, and it lasted like a year or something, the road closure, and it just wiped out their Airbnb.
Coincided right with them opening their Airbnb was this road closure that made everything that you could want to get to an extra 30 minutes out of the way. It was just terrible timing for them.
So really, really hurt their productivity on that property. And they had a family, growing family. And I think they just decided they were tired. So we took that off their hands for them. And I think it felt like it was such a blessing for them to find us and us to find them, because they could move on to do their next step, which was they were going through an adoption. And it just allowed them to be able to move on in their life, and allowed us to take over this lovely home and try to help somebody else get into that as a rent home.
And it's a nice house, by the way.
It is.
I mean, that's beautiful. A nice. So wait, this was your first deal, am I correct?
Our first creative deal, yeah.
First creative deal. Okay, so where's this property located?
It's in Maryland.
Okay, and where are y'all located?
San Diego.
Okay, so how many times did you fly back and forth for the house? Wait a second, you bought that thing without even seeing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't seen any of our 3 that we got this year. Haven't seen them all.
One of them we just the owner, our house in Iowa, the owner is the one that's helping us show it to new tenants because he lives locally and he's great, and he runs over and helps us with things here and there, putting up smoke detectors, whatever. Yesterday
yellow signs.
Yeah, yesterday he sent over pictures of the backyard, and there's a gorgeous deck on the property that we didn't know existed.
Never even saw.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Little added bonus. So your first deal, the people are running an Airbnb. They open the Airbnb as this road is being now closed.
Yeah.
So that's affecting their business. They want to sell. So now, did you buy that with cash, or was seller financing? What was that deal like? Did you have to come up with a lot of money to buy it?
How did you convince them?
Yeah.
The convincing them was actually interesting. Blue Ad, it was an Airbnb group. The wife reached out. She was very skeptical at first, openly told me, this is weird. I'm not sure how I feel about this conversation. We talked on the phone many times, then had to talk on the phone with her husband a number of times. When we first pitched sub 2 as part of the strategy, they were not interested. It was the first response was, that's not what we want. We want just a clean break. We're not interested in that. And I talked them back into it after just saying, I want to just make sure that you understand what this means, because I'm sure that you're thinking A, B, and C, and I just want to make sure that A, B, and C is the right thing to think. Then it's absolutely no pressure. Obviously, like, there's lots of different ways that we can buy the house. But before you make a decision, let's just make sure we understand. And they were great with that. And 25 minutes later, they were like, okay. At one point, they were like, well, if you don't buy it, can you help us put a tenant buyer in it? And that's what kind of started. We went from them saying, we want a clean break and we don't want to ever talk to you ever again, to, can we hire you to help us do this indefinitely? So that was fun.
And then, can you buy my house then?
And then can you buy my house? And it was a hybrid deal. So we did take over their mortgage. They had a 2.25% interest rate.
Oh!
Mm-hmm.
That's like, when are you going to find did you have to get a bank approval to do that?
No.
Okay. So you got a 2.25 rate on a turnkey or really nice house in Maryland that was fixed to be a Airbnb that's not working out. Yeah. So I'd imagine that payment's got to be pretty low.
Yes. The payment is low. We gave them about $5,000. They had some equity, and we gave them about $5,000 up front. And we had a handful of repairs to make before we felt like it was really ready. There was a safety issue with a deck. We had a deck that was replaced that we didn't want anybody renting it while that deck was there. So had that removed, and their balloon payment is due in 7 years.
Yay. Great job.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, enjoy that rate. Holy cow.
So really, I was kind of being silly about convincing, because there's really no convincing, right? It's just, you are just asking the questions. But I love that you even, told them like A, B, and C, like, this is true, kind of walk them down, because when you talk to enough people, you'll find that it's the same objections. It's the same worries. People are just, it's new, it's different, and they've never heard of it before. And so if you can just calmly and rationally explain without over explaining, I think that's the key. Mm-hmm. He knows for sure. Yeah. Back in the day of over educating a seller. But keeping it simple, short and sweet. And this is how we can help you. And if it works,
it seems like once they understand us and we get to talk to them for a while and really explain how it works, then they're motivated. If they're motivated, then they're like, okay, I think we could make this work. So that's why they reached out to us, because they needed some help and they wanted to find out if there was something that would work for them.
Well, and I think that's key, is you're looking to talk to motivated sellers. And that's really the key. And they were motivated because they were in a situation in this house. It wasn't like the house was in bad condition, or, one thing, they weren't necessarily in a financial situation yet, but maybe it could have turned into one if they didn't recognize what was going on. Mm-hmm. So here it is. You guys are able to come in, help them. They feel great about the deal. You felt great because you bought this beautiful house, beautiful neighborhood with a 2.25 interest rate, and you only had to put $5,000 down to buy it, plus some closing costs, right?
Yeah.
Closing costs. definitely.
We did do an inspection on it just because it's across the country from us, and it's not an old home, but it does have a holding tank and a well and different things that seemed like they were a little bit like we wanted to make sure that they were all in good working order.
Got it. We have a question from Ray asking, Natalie, would you share who your coach was?
Which coach? My real estate coach?
Yeah, how did you learn about this strategy? He's asking.
Oh, Jenn and Joe. Right down is Jenn and Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe. This is my wife, Jenn. Just in case we want to make sure, who was your golf coach? Okay. Maybe that's what they were asking.
You need that.
I need that.
I've had many golf coaches.
Including your dad.
Yeah. If you're just tuning in, Natalie and Kerri, are in our small group coaching, and they've had such tremendous success. We asked them to come join our podcast to share with all of you some of the outstanding work that they've been doing behind the scenes, and they've already closed 3 deals. So this one, to tie back to the property we're just talking about here, how are you going to raise funds for this final balloon payment in 7 years? I know you kind of touched on it, but maybe re-explain a little bit.
This is an interesting one because there's a couple of different ways we've thought about this. One is we're putting tenant buyers into these properties. So the balloon payments are scheduled so that we have the opportunity to hopefully have a tenant buyer close on the property before our balloon payment is due. If that doesn't happen, we're buying intentionally so that we have pretty decent cash flow. And then if we need to, we've got money put aside for a balloon payment in the future so that we can continue to use that property however we want to.
Good deal. And probably because they just bought it not long ago, I would imagine they don't have like a ton of equity yet.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes if they do have a small amount of equity, you have the option to either raise some capital or save some from your cash flow and then use that. You're also going to get a large non-refundable option deposit from your renter once they move in. There's some capital, right? So there's ways that you could generate the capital, hence why we love rent to own. But like what you mentioned, if your renter ends up buying before 7 years and then they refinance and get a new loan, they now buy the house. You guys get a check for that too. I would say the only downfall is paying off that 2.25 rate. We just did one of those last year, and we bought a house, $100 down, turnkey, beautiful house, and the rate was 2.75, and our renters just qualified for their mortgage. Hey, yes, we did get a check, which is great, but
mixed emotions.
Mixed emotions because you just
hard to say goodbye to that rate because you won't find it these days.
Yeah.
So I have another question coming in off of Instagram. Who closed the deal and did the paperwork? So this was in Maryland. So were you using a title company, an attorney?
Maryland, we used a title company.
Mm-hmm.
And then they help you through the paperwork. Obviously, we provide some of the agreements and all of that.
Yeah. Closing is a little bit of a learning curve. We are also closing in multiple different states. So it's a bit of a new learning curve in each state. We're now working with the transaction coordinator so that we can get a little bit more hand-holding on that, just because really it's the simplest things that can get complicated because different states call the same paperwork different things.
A lot of these title companies aren't familiar with creative financing either. They're not familiar with sub 2, so they don't know what to do with you. So it has been like each state is a little bit different. Some states are title states, some states are attorney states. So we've had to kind of get through all of the weeds in that, and it's been a good learning experience. I mean, we learn a lot with each house was completely different. But we're learning, and we're also learning that we'd rather have someone else do that.
Yay!
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm getting chills because you're bringing warmness to my heart, Kerri, when you said that, because I know when we first met, hey, I want to learn how to do this, and you guys are a prime example. The only way you're going to truly learn is by doing. And now you've closed deals in what states?
Iowa, Colorado, and Maryland.
Which are 3 completely random different states, right? So what Colorado's is not like Maryland, and what Iowa is not like either one of the two. So, you're learning new things in different areas, and every single time is a learning example. You're going to find out what states you love. And then there's some states that are just a little bit more challenging, got some workarounds, but you'll kind of tune into oh, I love this spot. So Go.
Okay, I was going to say, so I'm always interested when there's a team or, obviously we're husband, wife, mother, daughter. So how did you determine your roles? Did you kind of, take a little while to figure it out? Or were you kind of like, hey, mom, you do this part, I got this? Or how did that look?
No, it didn't take any time at all. Natalie's got the gift of gab. She's really great on the phone. She's the acquisition specialist. She knows what to say and when to say it and how much to listen. And me, I'd rather do the back end stuff. I'm a little more secure back there. I'm starting to get better at talking to people, but it's something that you have to practice. And once I know more about what I'm talking about, then I feel more confident, but it's practice. So, but yeah, I think we determined I'll spell check everything for her and she can call all the people.
And deal with all the insurance
insurance and attorneys and business structure and all of the back end stuff, all of the getting the keys and getting the inspections and getting, all these things taken care of before a renter's able to move in. And all those things are very tedious but they have to be done. They're important. And so I'm learning how to do all that and keep track of everything at the same time.
That's awesome. Yeah. I had to ask because it reminded me of Joe and I. There's times where he would definitely try to put me on the phone with sellers and I would do it. Like, he's so much better. Like, my butt doesn't belong in that seat.
I mean, I'll start out with texting, on Facebook, Blue Ad, whatever response. And I'll say, okay, I'm going to connect you with my partner who specializes in this. So
there you go.
Pass them off to her and she's the closer. So that was really easy to fit into those two spots, I think, for us.
Well, and I think that's awesome.
Perfect, because that's like, it works. That works really well for me because I hate the administrative stuff. I can't. My brain doesn't.
Yeah. And I can't say that I love it either, but it's definitely something that has to be done. And I think it's also something that we can train someone else to help with, that I can move on to other things too. So.
Mm-hmm. And that's so important to know. It's like, we are very big on, like, you got to know all roles, all positions so that you can hire accordingly and train properly, because how are you going to train someone if you don't know what you're even looking for that person to really truly do? So you don't have to do it forever. And especially, once you have the money to be able to hire, we encourage that, but you got to know the couple steps. And there's tons of things that we don't enjoy doing at times, but like you said, there's the things that got to get done: the inspection, this report, that paperwork. Yes. And it's just part of the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say one of our biggest mistakes, if I could say, is we didn't hire our executive assistant soon enough. So I would think that was one of the things that we felt like we should have to try to do everything ourselves. And why not add one more hour to the day? Because, hey, why? Right. And there's times where you're like, you got to say, okay, it's time to bring somebody on. And I mean, imagine the way you two are taking off. You're not going to be terribly far behind because Kerri's gonna be like, yep, okay. I need somebody to delegate some of this stuff to. So.
That's right.
Right. So. Great.
So we have a couple of we're taking on new opportunities. One of the deals we have in the pipeline right now is will be an out-of-state flip. So that'll be the first time that we've done that. It's a simpler one, but it's just like each new house, we're kind of like, I don't think we're doing it on purpose, but it seems like we're just trying to check every single potential way to do this off the list to figure out which ones we like the best. And
yeah.
Well, and I think that's what it dials into with what we do, generating leads the way we do, and the way we talk about branding yourself on social media. Your job when you run your own business, small, big, doesn't matter, is to attract business, right? To attract leads. So by branding yourselves the right way, you guys are getting leads thrown at you left and right. I remember one conversation I had with Natalie. She's like, I've got leads pouring out of my eyeballs right now. And let me tell you, if you own a business or you run a business or manage one, the minute you have that part already conquered, like the first step to success is already kind of almost written, not completely, but like everybody struggles with leads. So what have you found have been some of the best ways that you found sellers or sellers are finding you?
I mean, when I've had leads pouring out of my eyeballs, it's all from Blue Ads and Facebook conversations.
Yeah.
And so much of it has been consistent follow-up. I get through the script really, really, really fast. And then if it's a decision, how long am I going to wait till I talk to this person again? And sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's a month. It's never longer than a month. And everybody, I mean, probably 75% of the people that I'm talking to this week are follow-ups from, November, December, January, who are now ready. Like just last night, a seller call with somebody that I first talked to in December. They had just listed on the MLS. They hadn't gotten any offers yet. She said, I don't think we're open to selling it on terms, but you never know. So I put them in my CRM for follow-up in, middle of March when they're coming to their expiration on their contract. Turns out they haven't sold it and they're now open to selling it on terms. So it's just that consistent follow-up and never letting a lead drop off of my communications list unless they've explicitly told me never contact me again.
Yay, that's the story. No lead left behind.
Yep, just like the Trolls movie.
Just like the Trolls movie, no lead left behind. And so that's really the key, is generate leads, but the you hear it a million times, the fortune's in the follow-up. Mm-hmm. And just because they reached out to you in December doesn't mean they're ready to do business right then, that second. But now fast forward 4 months later and they're like, hey, they raised their hand, please. Now let's do some business. And here you are, been following up. So they're now got to know you maybe a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now it feels ready. So for many of you listening, Kerri and Natalie are dropping some like complete gold nuggets for you. So if you want to like get some of these results, like these small little steps are the difference of doing or just wanting to do, right? And you guys have taken all the right steps. We talk about generating leads, follow up, getting on the phone. Even if you don't feel like getting on the phone, just do it, and do it at a high volume. 1 a week is not going to get you to that 100. You got to do it often, right? And then you keep doing these things, and now here it is, you're getting deals, right? So now that you're getting deals, did you have that little mental hurdle? Because what we've been chatting about lately is some people are afraid when it's time to get that first deal. Like, I'm afraid somebody says yes, now what do I do? Did that ever happen to you?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Even like partway through the process with the title company that wasn't being entirely responsive or explaining anything, and we were a little kind of feeling lost. You guys were great in that process. But I mean, it's, similar to your coaching style and like what we've learned about just taking action and like continuing to call people. We're one of our Colorado deal, like we got lost in the middle of it. Something wasn't happening right. I just felt in my gut that the title company wasn't doing what we were supposed to be doing. There was some miscommunication, and we had to like scramble last minute to find somebody else to help us. And it was like getting on the phone and calling 10 attorneys in Denver to find somebody who knew what they were talking about that could jump in and help us. So like that same kind of mentality of like, you got to get on the phone. You have to call the people. You have to talk to the people. You have to ask all the questions, even if you don't know the answers to them.
Yeah.
I learned this a long time ago. It's DWIT. Just do whatever it takes, right? Yeah. If you got to call 5 attorneys, if you got to call 10, then call 10. Like, find out what it takes to get this deal to the finish line. Don't be so easy to throw in the towel.
Yeah.
My very first deal, I was on my own, and I probably cried because just every obstacle, and there was nobody to turn to. It was like piling frustration, but you just kept foraging on. And the seller was grateful because he was in a bad situation. He was going to lose his house. Mm-hmm. So if I didn't forage on and figure a way to get that first deal closed 20 something years ago, who knows the trajectory of my whole life, right? Me doing where I'm right now talking with y'all. So the whole point of it is just finding that workaround, that little bit of an obstacle, and just don't give up. All right.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah. And so can you kind of share like a day in the life, or when are you finding time to do all of this? Now, I know you have each other and you've kind of distinguished who does what, but it all does take time. And I believe we're working a full-time job, Natalie, and you have children and friends and family, and you need to sleep and eat at some point. So how are you still getting on the phone with sellers and being able to have these conversations? What does that kind of look like?
I was working full-time. I was a consultant, so I had a handful of clients, and fortunately was in a position where I could schedule my time around them for the most part. And I still do have a couple of clients that I've retained that are less time intensive. But it was really just whenever there was a moment. I I'm West Coast, so I feel like I can reach a lot of people later at night when everybody else is starting to move on and do their other things. And then my kids get up really early, so I can do East Coast stuff too. So it's just finding little pockets of time everywhere possible until I got to the point where I could really block out and say, I'm doing this most of the day. And my mom's the same way. She's still working.
Mm-hmm.
So I work 2 days a week. So the days I'm not working, I'm on the computer. I'm looking up insurance policies. I'm sending emails and talking to people and dropping blue ads and joining more Facebook groups and just doing all the little details that I can every moment that I have. So
and her and I talk constantly.
Oh,
so
yeah, like
there's and we're on lots of shared everything. We figured out how to, even though we live in the same city, we don't live at the same house or work in the same office. So we've had to figure out how to make all of our tools collaborative so that if she's doing something or is busy, I can pop in and vice versa, and doing all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's huge too, because when you learn how to have like a virtual office, then that just elevates your game. And that's where a shout out to Abby. If we didn't have her, oh my gosh, she's the one who hopefully inspired and helped you guys too. Just creating the Google folders. I know you guys are using Notion and Asana.
We are using Asana. Notion, not as a real collaborative tool yet. I use Notion for a lot of other things, not quite yet implemented it for this business, but we'll get there.
Awesome. Yeah. And if those are just like task management systems, for those of you listening might not really know, but there's just so many programs out there, and it's just pick one and just slowly get used to it. Like, it's all overwhelming. You can't use that as an excuse anymore. It's 2024. So start with a Google Drive. I feel like that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Open a folder and go.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what we did, because when we first got started, full time, it was the beginning of a global pandemic. So we weren't allowed to get together. And so what that happening is we hired some folks in our own city, but we still never saw them. And then when we started hiring other folks outside of our city, like Abby and a few others, we were hours away. So we've got used to being on Zoom calls and sharing all types of software. And what you've said now too, it's true. It's like, it's never been easier in the history of humans to do this, where you could do it at a beach. I don't recommend that. I recommend being at the beach, be at the beach.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if you had to, you could, right?
Yeah. And sometimes that's just the thing. I mean, I do a lot of this work from my car. I love that my CRM records all of my phone conversations, because I can talk to anybody anywhere and then go back later and listen to them and pick out all the little notes that I need to remember or use for future tasks. Like, I can do this anywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the neat thing about real estate that I've learned to actually love about it is the deals are great and you get some checks and the money's cool, but it's also a lifestyle of what you can do too. And if you could learn how to actually do both, that's where really, and I kind of lean towards more working than I do like too much relaxation, because I love to do what I do. So I feel lucky, but it's cool that I get to do this like at the pool out back, and I'm still back there jamming away, got my iPad and phone in one hand, and I'm getting work done, rather than what I used to do was sitting in office for 12, 13 hours a day, missing going outside. And I don't know, I like being outdoors. So
that's a beautiful thing. You get to do it's to choose your own adventure every day. So I was going to say too, like, now that you have a lot on your plate being entrepreneurs, do you find that managing your time is one of like the hardest things to do, or does it come naturally to you to be, okay, at 9 to 10, I am doing this?
Not for me. It does not come naturally. I'm too distracted. I have to come up with a system to time block or something, because I am too distracted with too many different things. So I'm working on that though.
I'm like I mentioned before, I'm a startup kind of addict. The thrill of building a business and working all the time and being obsessed with what you're doing and loving it is so much fun for me. So time management is hard, just because I have to really stop myself, or the balance goes out the door. Because I'll do it constantly in this stage of kind of growth and figuring out all the different, possibilities and new things. It's fun. You don't want to stop doing stuff that's fun.
I know it's very easy to do. So just as much as you block time for work, make sure you block time for not work.
Yeah.
And like try to like put your phone down and don't get next to it. Like I don't have an Apple Watch, so if I put down my phone and it's on silent, it's in the other room. Like I don't see it. I go back. Believe me, there'll be.
I don't know how you pick up your phone when you put it down though, because that thing is like a grenade at that point. There's 30 voicemails, a million text messages.
Oh yeah, it gets pretty wild.
I put my phone down, and then that's when I get the Natalie ? Text message.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
They're
You
the
guys.
best.
I absolutely love when I saw that Jenn showed that to me in our group chat, and that brought so much. It works.
Well, let's share what that is. So they're using one of our strategies here, a Natalie ? You want to explain that, Kerri?
So I was trying to ask her a question by text, and she didn't answer me. I think I asked her a couple of different times. I didn't get any response, and so I just said, Natalie ? And sent that to her. And a couple minutes later, she said, "Did you just Joe Delle Fave me?" I did.
Yeah, and as far as like when to use this in your business, guys, if you're listening, this is when you're talking to a seller and they just completely ghost you. They've stopped returning your calls, they stopped messaging, and it is the best thing. Not leave this like 3-minute voicemail, but simply their first name ? That's all.
I did that to a seller that we've been working with since 2021 in our CRM. And he just came back up from who knows where, because we constantly follow up. And he's like, "Oh, I still have my house." We asked him a few more questions and he doesn't answer. And of course, I just happen to be the CRM and see this nonsense going on. I'm like, "You didn't answer? Okay. Jonathan ? And then I happen to go through it today and I see he responded and our team picked it back up. I'm like, very good.
I don't know.
So,
it's like the simplest thing sometimes. Like we as humans try to overly complicate things, and some things are a little tricky, like the TC paperwork and title companies, but for the most part it's just straightforward, asking the right questions and just taking good notes and getting those answers. So if you were to give advice to anyone who's like on the fence, like Kerri, how you share, you're like looking at like, what am I going to do for retirement? Or Natalie, just like looking for something different and, love the thrill of starting up. Is there like one piece of advice that you would give someone who's looking to just begin their journey and they really want to get into real estate, but what is something you would tell them?
Go ahead, Natalie. You got it.
I mean, one thing.
One or two,
And it's different depending on where you are. Like for Natalie and I, we're in 2 different places in our life. She's obviously a generation away. She has short-term goals for making money and building a career. I have longer-term goals for, additional income stream after retirement and legacy building. So we have different goals, but our goals are both the same: make money. So I would say, and I would say that from the beginning, when I first started looking into real estate investing, probably what really got my foot in the door and gave me the courage to jump out and do something was having the coaching. And I got to hand that to you guys, because having the coaching advice, having somebody that's done it before, who's, successful at what they're doing and giving me advice to help me not make any big mistakes. And also the group of other people that are in our group helping and supporting one another and learning from one another. So that really just empowers you to step out and give it a try. And that's, so I think that's my advice would be to step out, get some community, get some coaching and some other people around you to encourage you.
And I got to say thank you guys for being true leaders in there, because you are answering questions and sharing your story along the way. And it's so inspiring for those who are just joining or want to get started. So I really do value all that you share with our group.
Great.
Yeah, we love it.
And every single time we do our group and I do the support call, I get off, and every time I'm like, I love everybody in our support call group, because it's like, it's a bunch of folks just sharing, doing deals. And it's exciting to see all of the things that are going on. And every single time I do, I'm like, wow, I can't believe, like, honey, they're doing like, and she does the same. So it's really cool. And then today Jenn was running her support call in the morning and I heard something popping in and I had a question. So I popped in and then here I had to answer a couple of things. And
question about a HELOC.
yeah. So it's always really awesome. And that's why I love, having our small group, just because of, the community. It's really awesome.
Yeah. It's very helpful.
Yeah.
And like this kind of like the thing that I love about real estate investing, whether you're going to turn it into a full-time thing that you do that supports all of your hopes and dreams and goals, or it's something that's kind of a side project, like you can go at any pace of this, but the coaching part of it, and I promise I'm not sales pitching, but the coaching part of it makes it so much more accessible no matter what pace you're going. Because when you're going slow and you're just making a few decisions at a time, you have, your goals are farther out. I want to buy 1 or 2 houses this year, not 1 or 2 houses this month. You still have the same questions, like the same risk of bad decision making or not knowing which step to take next is still there, no matter what pace you're going at. So it's important.
Another big question. So I think Natalie, you hopped in about October-ish. How long till you guys did your first deal? Because I know people always ask, like, Joe, how long does it take for one of your clients to get their first deal? I say everybody's always different, but this is a question that I hear often. So
I posted my first Blue ad on October 15th. We closed the Maryland house the last day of 2023.
That's right.
And then Colorado was about 3 weeks later. Iowa was about 3 weeks later. So about 90 days to close the first 3 from Blue ad to close.
And it was like massive, massive action.
Oh, yeah. And I remember. And now let me ask you a question. How many, before you found that first deal, how many deals did you feel like you had to look at to say, no, that's not a good deal? Or, that you were obviously on the phone. Was it like 1 out of 5? Was it 1 out of 10? Like, how many do you think you had to talk to you're like, this is a deal, we got it, and we're closing?
Man, with Maryland, that was one of the earliest ones. I feel like I remember us talking about that one. I'd have to go back and look, but it was like one of my first couple of ads. And the fact that the seller was so open to just getting on the call and having a conversation with me is what made it move faster. So, you get through, we've talked about this in coaching. You can tell the difference between somebody who's motivated and somebody who's not motivated, especially to sell their house creatively. And until we had kind of heard for ourselves the difference between those two, it was kind of like, which ones are we even going to spend time bothering with? But once we started to connect with people who really were motivated and excited about selling creatively, then it was really fast.
So if you're talking to just unmotivated sellers, or you're spending a lot of your time talking to unmotivated sellers, you're going to spend a lot of time and it's kind of torturous.
Yeah.
All right. Because you're going to feel like, I'm not making a deal, I'm going nowhere. But then when you actually focus your time on the phone, especially talking to motivated sellers who are in a situation, you could do more deals a lot more often if you just spent a lot more time focusing on that and letting your keyboard kind of follow up with some of the unmotivated people, because eventually some of those turn back around and they actually are motivated. And then the key is getting on the phone, right? So my question for you, Natalie, because I know you do a lot of the phone stuff. When somebody says, Joe or Jenn, I just don't know what to say. What was that like? Did you, like, obviously we provide scripts, which gives you questions, but what was that like when you're first getting started on those first few phone calls? What's advice that you could give somebody just starting out?
Fake it till you make it. I mean, really, I stopped caring even if I was right. I would say something that might have been wrong and I might have lost that deal, but I didn't care because I was going to talk to 15 more people this week and I'd get it right the next time. So it was less about, trying to perfect it or say the exact right thing on the script or have every single question a seller could potentially ask already pre-planned in my head. Like, I just had to stop caring about what the answers were and kind of go with it in the moment. And if it was the wrong answer or if I didn't have an answer, that was okay.
I think one of the things that I saw with Natalie interaction with sellers is her finding a way to connect with them on an emotional level where get to be friends, kind of find some sort of commonality, gain their trust, and, you know, kind of maybe spend more time than necessary on the first call or two, but that's how you build the trust. And if you sense that they're a motivated seller, then work that, you know, work on making them know that you really do want to help them. And then they become trusting of you. And then, you know, they can help you. And then they can start to understand what you're actually trying to help them with. So I think that Natalie has a good way of like making friends with people, you know, so to speak. So I think all three of our sellers that we have been in communication with and with this the whole year is we have friendships with them now. You know, we've built relationships, like she said earlier, and we know about them, and they kind of know about us too. So it's good, and I think meeting them on their level is a trust builder.
Well, and I think that really truly describes your yellow house.
Yeah,
the Iowa house, right?
Yeah.
So that gentleman found you, same thing, through the blue ad.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so he finds you in the blue ad. What was that situation like? He sold you his house.
Yeah, so he buys houses in his hometown, a small town in Iowa. He likes to do fixer-uppers, and he was just ready to sell this one. It had been a midterm rental, and he owned it. There was a small loan on it, which was actually an interesting situation because we often talk about when you're taking over someone's loan on a property, you don't want the bank involved. In this case, the town and the bank were so small that the bank was involved, and they were great, and they're totally fine with the whole entire thing. So we took over a small bank loan that was pretty non-traditional in terms of creative financing standards. But yeah, the guy who sold it to us, what's that?
That was actually a construction loan, so that kind of made it a little bit,
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, this guy's been fantastic. He's shopping around the rest of the town looking for other properties for us and has us plugged in with all the realtors locally. And he is sending us tenant buyers and renters and installing smoke detectors and taking new pictures. And every time we have to show it, he shows it for us. And he so far has not allowed us to pay him. We sent him a big giant box of Omaha steaks the other day as kind of a thanks for helping us out. But he's just been great. He loves our tenant buyer program, and he's motivated to help us get somebody into there because we're on a balloon payment with him for the majority of what he's owed. We're paying him a little bit monthly, but he'll get most of his equity at the end of our term. So he's hoping that if we get a tenant buyer in there sooner and somebody else ends up buying it, that he'll get his balloon payment earlier. So like as long as I can help out, I'll help out. And he's been great.
So it's a win for everybody.
What
once
a
again.
story. I'm glad you had them share that one. I didn't hear that tail end about that.
Oh, this guy's fantastic. Like they found the bestseller like in North America, it feels like this guy. Because he's helping like the whole thing, like everything. So.
Yeah, but even like I love that you share like something as simple as Omaha steaks, right? Like he won't take your money, but like you give him a little something. And I think too, like you gotta be go-givers. And if you're constantly what's in it for me, take, then you're not gonna get a lot. Right. But if you like genuinely show your appreciation and pay people for their time or pay them in some sort of an affection, like steaks, who doesn't love a good steak? It goes so far. And I think that, you know, it just says a lot, especially when you're doing things remotely. You want to have that trust with those people. So that's awesome.
And the more you give, the more you got. And obviously you send over that big, huge box of steaks and they're delicious, right? He's going to love it. And if he didn't already love you both, which he already did, now it takes it to a whole other level.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's great. So, that'll be an ongoing relationship, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, probably by the sounds of it, he's going to probably bring another deal or something too.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping. We have a couple of other things in the pipeline that he's helping us out with. So,
and if we find a deal, I'm sure he'll be happy to go check it out for us.
Yay! I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And then you helped out. Was it a lady in Colorado?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the condo.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
In Colorado Springs, that?
No, actually, this one's in Aurora.
Okay.
So just south of Denver.
What happened on that deal?
She was actually an investor. She lived out of state. She lives in Texas. She owned this property in Colorado. She had it as a midterm rental. She first bought it right in the big traveling nurse swing. There's a number of hospitals right around this part of Aurora, and she was having no problem renting it for a lot of money every single, 3 months, 4 months at a time contracts. And then that kind of died down with COVID. Not as many traveling nurses and their stipends weren't as much. Some changes in the way that Airbnb and Furnished Finder did, how you could find those properties. There were a lot of them in Denver. That's been an interesting part about that versus the two other houses that we own. When competitive wise, there's like 3,000 2-bedroom condos for sale or for rent within, a 15-mile radius of where our condo is, because Denver is a highly populated city versus our other places that are a little bit smaller. Our place in Iowa is only like 5,000 people in town. So, but yeah, she wasn't renting it as consistently as she wanted to. And so first we talked about helping her get a tenant buyer in there. She had actually been paying attention, I think, to you guys and to some Ron LeGrand stuff, and knew about all of this and was interested in it. So talked to her first about helping her put a tenant buyer in there. And then over some time, it was a couple of months, like November to January, that we talked with her, and ups and downs in those conversations, and she finally she just wanted to sell it. So that was another one. It was a great loan, little over 3%. She had just bought it in 2020, so not much equity. We'd negotiated it well, was very little to get into it, and had probably the most interest in that property as a tenant buyer listing. All three, that one's the one that's been the most popular, that I think that will get the placement the fastest on.
The reason why is because out of all those other condos, you're probably the only one offering a rent to own, where they can move in, rent it, and then be able to have the option to own it down the road, which is a really good opportunity for some folks. So I can imagine even in a super competitive market, you're probably like the only one. Yeah. And then in the small markets, you're probably definitely the only one, right, offering that. So it does give you that little bit of that unique strategy, that where if there's a lot or not, doesn't really make that much of a difference, because everybody, most part, wants to own their own home. And this is a great way to help take that first step if they're not, all the way there yet. So that's awesome. And you're creating wins for people. You're getting 2.25, you're getting 3% interest rates, right, which I don't know if all of y'all know, but this is 2024, and them rates are long gone, but they're still out there, and those deals are still out there. And so where I keep on dialing back is, if you are able to find deals and get a 2 or 3% interest rate, would the real estate market be on fire right now, or would it be slowing down? Well, it'd probably still be on fire, because that's like free money they're giving out. And with the right strategies, with creative finance, you can still find those deals, and they're out there all across the country. It doesn't happen just one spot. But it happens everywhere. And that's really the cool part of why we love doing what we do. So great job, guys. I just want to thank you both for coming on.
We're so proud of you. Seriously. The amount of work that you've done, we know it's not always easy, but you get up with a smile on your face. You come with like literal a pad of questions that look like on some of these support calls, and you rapid fire them out. You take the notes, but then you go and take the action, and it is truly paying off. And you're changing lives. Like, you're about to place tenant buyers, and people that didn't think they'd be able to own a home are going to be able to own a home because of you guys. So I hope you recognize like the magnitude of that, because it truly is an amazing thing. I get goosebumps just talking about it, because we've been able to do that, and it's such a gift to give people, but also, you're changing your own family's lives too. So thank you for coming on today and sharing your stories.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well, obviously, and I just like to say, guys, once again, you are complete rock stars, and your good attitude and your work ethic is what gotten you to where you already are. I think we should already get on the calendar like a 6-month recap, so everybody could just keep following up with you guys, because you are heading to the moon, and it's super exciting to see. So thank you for spending this Tuesday with us, and all of our fans listening and guests listening. We really do appreciate it. Next Tuesday,
I have no idea.
There is no next Tuesday.
We're going to be in Tampa.
So next Tuesday, we won't be able to host this because we're going to be at the Family Mastermind. So stay tuned. because all those connections and all the things we're going to learn, we're going to be bringing it back and sharing with you guys.
So what you can do, if you're still listening, you need to head over to creativefinanceplaybook.com, and we have 2 gifts available for you. We've talked a lot about our blue ad. You've heard these ladies talk about, and then also our script. So if you head over to creativefinanceplaybook.com, go grab our free way to score leads on Facebook, because we are giving you the example of the free ad, the blue ad, this crazy little thing that is putting all of these sellers into Kerri Natalie's inboxes. And then also download our opening script. It was just where what Kerri said. She's messaging back and forth. And then from there, you got to hop on a phone call and take it from there. But go over to creativefinanceplaybook.com and grab those and put it to work next week while we're in Tampa masterminding with some of the best. You be putting in the work, and then come back the following week and tell us how it went.
Yay!
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you again, ladies. I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank
Thank
you.
y'all. Thank you.
Bye.
Keep up the great job. See you
Bye.
guys.